Being that we have 8 members present of the advisory committee, we can call the meeting to order. The first action would be the approval of September 13th advisory committee meeting minutes.
Karen, do you have us on record? Okay, let's see it.
If we could have being that I was not at the meeting, relying on others, and do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the meeting?
So moved.
Adam, if you could turn on your camera for the vote.
Okay. 2 minutes away from permanent camera 2.
The what?
But I'm 2 minutes away from keeping my camera on. I'm at a red light right now, and then
Okay.
I'll keep it on. Can you see me now though?
No, we cannot.
All right. How about now?
Nope.
Trying. Nope. Can you see me now?
No, not yet. There's
No pressure,
Sandra.
Kim. There you are.
Yeah, there you are.
All right.
Seen Sandra popped on as well.
All right, with that said, we have a motion by Mr. Blue. I believe there was a second. Who was the second?
I'll second.
Carl, you can't be the second on this one.
I'll second, even though I wasn't there.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Blue, second by Mr. Story. Any discussion about the minutes of the meeting on September 13th? Hearing none. I guess all in favor, please raise your hand. Aye. Those opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda, old business. Review of the draft 5-year solid waste plan. And for that, I can turn it over to Pete.
Okay, so everybody see the plan that's up there?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so we sent this out prior, and I know that we've gone over this plan back and forth a lot. What I would like to do is kind of go through just the specific actions that we have to see if there's any questions on those. There is one section that has some editing that was done, and we'll stop at that and cover that. And then at the end of that, take any other questions, concerns, and then I feel like that we've pretty much completed the document, and would ask that we move this document on to the floor. So first, is that me?
Yeah, it appears to be.
I don't have a second mic on.
You may just need to turn the volume down on your speakers.
I could barely hear now.
Maybe that's not
Okay,
the speakers, Pete.
can you guys still hear me?
Yeah, you sound fine.
Okay, so the first section is just background information. It's got everybody's name here. It has the preparer, the resolution information, then it gets into chapter 2 of the collection system. And we took great time in making sure that we accurately describe the system, the registration system, and then the strengths and weaknesses. After we did that, we moved on to the specific actions, and specific action number one was regarding the how do we say it? The unincorporated and uncontracted collection areas and determining to a third-party consulting firm so that we can get a set of facts. Does anybody have any questions about this section? This was probably the one that was most discussed throughout the whole plan. Oh, this one, which I see is a little bit of a typo already. I've got a number one, two number ones. The hauler list, this is something that the state wants in. This is a number two, creating outreach programs for each waste sector for best practice guides and toolkits. And we would create a technical assistance program for each one of those waste sectors. It's going down the path of a lot of education. And create a marketing program to standardize waste collection messaging across the solid waste management area. Any questions on any of those? Chapter 2 was about disposal.
Sorry. Hey, Pete,
And
sorry to interrupt you. It's Brandon.
Still have not been able to set the total capacity, authorized capacity and stuff. So I will be moving on to that next. Yes,
Brandon's trying to ask a question.
I'm sorry. Brandon, go ahead.
Sorry, Pete. I saw where you had scrolled down the section over just the waste projections. Remember, I'd asked the question. It was right under question 1 where there's sort of that dramatic doubling in the projected amounts, and I just didn't understand that. You said you'd ask about it. I was just wondering if you ever found anything out.
We did ask the state about this, and more or less what they said was, these are the calculations that we have from all of their sources, and that's what the calculations come out to. They said, if you want to change it, you can, but this is what the state is recommending. I don't understand how they came up with that number or how they can even remotely come up with that number. So they said, don't worry about it. It's not a big deal to have that like that, but I really don't understand how they came up with the formula.
Clarifying question. It means to them how much waste residents of Jefferson County would generate, not how much waste would come into landfills in Jefferson County, correct?
This is for Jefferson County generation rates. That is correct.
Because I mean, that's the only creative way I could make sense of this. And I think that if they want us to keep it there, we should at least make a note that we don't believe it's going to be that way, because I don't like going on record saying we're going to fail this miserably.
Yeah, and the only thing I can think of is that this number 88,649,000 is how much would be generated, including this generation. But it says 2028 through 2032. How can we make note of this in their?
At minimum, a cover letter that makes reference to section 3A1, something like that, because it just doesn't make any
Also,
sense.
put an asterisk and indicate where these figures came from.
Except we don't know.
Well, the state
Well,
does.
Yeah,
Right.
they do.
Right. But somehow we need to communicate that we're not working this hard to do that.
It just makes no sense that basically the same amount of people are going to double the amount of waste that we produce. We should be doing half of that, not double that.
Yeah. And we ought to
Agreed.
say
Karen?
something like, in addition to that, it came from the state, we ought to say we disagree with it in some sort of explicit manner.
Karen, do you have anything that they said that Share any light? I mean, you was there with her when she was talking about it.
Yeah, I don't know. She didn't really give any specifics. She glossed over it like it wasn't a big deal.
Could it be a typographical error?
No, it's definitely not a typographical error. She seemed aware of it. I will double back with her one more time to get a better explanation as to why. And
This Sumeda, and I think, yeah, I think it would make sense to double check with her, but I think in general, we hear that projections of per capita waste generation are just going to increase for, nationwide and worldwide just because of higher consumerism and things like that, and more disposable items. But that could be an explanation, but yeah, we'd be interested to hear what
Why
they
don't we
say.
say we just agree with it? We don't agree with it. Just put it, we don't agree with it.
We need to be explicit, not gray, but black and white about it.
What are they gonna do to us?
nothing.
And maybe even call it a projection because that's what it is. Instead of a figure, which implies it came from somewhere. Good. Do the math on this thing.
I'll see if I can. Okay, any other concerns?
Makes some sense.
The other sections here in was the debris management plan in case of emergencies. I put that in at the last one. Nothing has changed there. It's fairly comprehensive in its description, although our plan is even much bigger than that. Identified the strengths and weaknesses and our specific.
Can you go show us what you were just describing and hold still for a second, please?
Debris management plan, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay. It is.
You mean storm debris, right?
Yes.
Okay, I think that's an important clarification.
Storm or disaster debris.
Okay, thank you.
Could be any number of disasters. And it's covering multiple pages. Do we need to get a little bit of time to review it, Sarah Lynn?
No, I was falling behind and just wanted to get back caught up.
Sure.
Thank you. Mainly, I think we probably ought to call it storm debris because debris in general I would take to be litter.
They call it a debris management plan. It's what they call it in the plan. That's what they're asking for.
Thank you.
The implementation schedule is assist Metro government in updating the debris management plan for disasters, which we're in the process of doing. Number 2 was hire a consultant to improve local and regional end-use opportunities for gypsum, concrete, and shingles with the end goal of establishing improved conditions for mixed C&D waste processing, something that we've been working on for a while. And then negotiate a new community host agreement, which has been on our plates for a little bit. We just haven't gotten started. Any questions on any of those? Any concerns?
Did the host agreement get through the legal stuff and now we just need to work it out, or are we still duking things out between attorneys?
There was a settlement agreement in that regard, so we're able to move forward.
Yay, thank you.
Recycling and reduction. They ask a lot of questions. Committee made quite a few edits in here that were great. Specific actions, create outreach and technical assistance programs for each waste sector, best practice guides and toolkits that focuses on reducing waste, recycling more, reducing contamination, right-sizing services, how to conduct waste audits, capture rate studies, allow for effective waste management decision-making, how to contract solid waste services, and the importance of reducing and recycling and where recycling goes once it's collected. Again, sticking to the education of things, create a roadmap to standardizing solid waste management messaging, using that the recycling partnership and our marketing firm to do that. This was one that was we modified. Hire a consultant to assist in improving local and regional end-use markets for recovered gypsum, drywall, concrete, and shingles, with the goal of establishing better economic conditions for mixed construction and demolition waste recycling. Consultants could also develop recommendations the waste management district could take to prepare the solid waste management area for influx of spent electric vehicles, batteries, with the goal of becoming a leader in handling EV batteries. Probably could be worded a little bit better. I'm sure Sandra and Sarah Lynn can help us out there, but the intent is there. The other ones were explore expansion of the existing full service sites to accept additional materials such as household hazardous materials, latex paint, electronics, and hard plastics. Create a marketing program to complement existing education and collection programs, but also to improve public perceptions about recycling and reducing. The marketing program would include elements of the outreach and technical assistance programs in 1 and 2. Perform capture rate studies to obtain baseline metrics. Any questions on any of those in the recycling section? Open dump prevention. Replace the announcement-based bulky waste collection system with an appointment-based system. 4 large items too large to fit in your 95-gallon cart, and this applies to the Urban Services District. The goal of this program would allow citizens the option for disposal of items as they are generated instead of needing to wait months for their next set out period in the current system. Consider amending 51-300 to include a minimum of once per month collection of bulky waste items too large to fit in garbage containers into the basic service package that is required to be offered by waste collectors as a condition of their license. Create illegal dumping education and outreach messaging as part of the larger campaign focusing on putting waste in its place. Messaging will focus on ensuring residents and businesses understand the importance of solid waste management for the community, their responsibility to ensure the waste is properly disposed in a permitted facility, and to publicize disposal options offered by Metro government and the private sector. Any concerns on any of those?
Pete, I tried to make a comment earlier, but it had myself on mute, so I apologize. Getting back to the recycling section, you and I have had conversation, and you know my concern with regard to the elimination of the beneficial reuse component of our recycling percentage. Do we report in this plan where we are as a percent recycling to the state?
We don't do it in this plan. We generally do that in our annual report. The plan doesn't ask us for any numbers and statistics. The annual report does.
My concern is that, you know, with the loss of the Ralph Avenue beneficial reuse, what is that going to do to our baseline percentage of recyclables coming out of the county. And how are we going to make up that volume? Even though there may be a C&D recovery facility started, it's not going to capture the volume of waste that was beneficially reused by Ralph Avenue.
Well, I
In my
don't think that
opinion.
there's any doubt that the closing of that facility is going to send a lot of stuff into the disposal stream, which is going to have an impact on our diversion rate. I don't think that there's any way that we can get around that. It is what it is. What we have in the plan that can hopefully do that to recover as much of that as we can. Let's go back up to disposal, I believe. It's listed here so that we can improve the local and regional end use opportunities for these materials so that we can get mixed C&D processing. Because, I mean, we identified that a long time ago when we was looking at how we can recover more C&D. You know, the study kind of recommended that we have an ordinance that required it. There's not really an appetite for ordinance if we don't have to have it. So we started down the path of trying to improve the end markets for the material, because we can have a recycling facility, but if we don't have the end markets and the need for it, it doesn't do us any good. So yeah, in looking at what's happened at Volt Avenue, Ralph Avenue, we're not quite there. I'm glad that they're talking about opening up a transfer station to recover what they can. But from the plan standpoint, I think the best thing that we can do is work to improve those end markets so that any facility can get a foothold and make it as a C&D processing facility. We got to improve those markets without beneficial use. We got to find recycling options for them, and it's tough. If they're not out there, I don't know what we do except take a hit on our diversion rate. And you know, it is what it is.
I want to report in this document a baseline percentage of recoverable items versus disposal items. And then now that number is skewed because of the loss of Ralph Avenue. If we don't have to report a number, so be it. We can basically report our intentions, but if a baseline is necessary, then we need to know what that baseline is.
We've kept the diversion and recycling rates for various different sectors going back into the 1990s. So I think that we have the baselines, and we've had it on an ongoing, you know, since back then. So I think what we'll see, we have the monitoring, we have the baseline. It's just really, to me, is what's going to happen, you know, when we can't count that as beneficial use.
Okay.
In the disposal practices weaknesses, I did list the final closure for Southern Materials on Volt Avenue. You know, we're going to lose that. And unfortunately, it might send it to the landfill if other beneficial use. I mean, maybe we not only put other beneficial use, but or recycling is not found. Recycling markets, would that help?
And
No,
sorry,
I
go
was
ahead,
just-
Bruce. Sorry.
I was just concerned that if we had to report a diversion rate in this plan, that we know exactly what the impact of the Ralph Avenue closure is going to have on that diversion rate, so that it was accurate and we had a baseline to build upon. And if no baseline is required in this plan, then so be it.
And Pete, to that end, I was just going to ask, and this is Andy Reynolds with WM. You know, you mentioned that you called it out in the weaknesses that Ralph Avenue is closing. I mean, I know that a number isn't required by the state. Would it make any sense at all to include the current diversion rate as it is right now at that point in the weaknesses area, and then make a note that without that volume, the diversion rate would currently be X? I mean, just for posterity, if nothing else, to say this is where we are currently, and it looks like we're doing a little bit better than we might actually be. Well, I mean, we're actually doing it, but it's not. There's no current direct outlet for it after Ralph Avenue closes.
Let me look at what I can do there.
And I'm sorry, I'm not on the board, so I mean, if board members think that that's not a helpful enterprise, then please let me know. I think any reference we can make to the numbers as a starting point for the plan, even if it's not required, is helpful.
I think it's helpful, but you got a grammatical error. It should be, or recycling markets are not found.
Bruce, this is Bob Lee. Can I make a comment?
Certainly.
In regards to this matter, I this morning sent a letter to Robert Schindler, and I thought I copied Pete on it.
You did.
In regards to this issue, I think it's mandatory that we change our current benchmark. I mean, you know, if the whole process in regards to waste generation is important to everyone, surely a correct benchmark in order to determine where we're going, where we are and where we're going in the future would be just as important. And I'm thinking that, you know, we not only have to reconstruct that whole benchmark situation, but I'd like to know more about Ralph Avenue and the new transfer station in regards to, you know, the permitting process and everything else. So, as I stated, the Kentucky chapter of NWRA and its members has sent a letter to Bob Schindler in this regard, asking for some validation of the benchmark.
Well, Bob, I did receive that letter. I didn't bring it to this committee as it was addressed to the board. But I can kind of go over where we're at with our diversion rates and how first off, the changing our method of calculation would kind of negate the data that we've collected over the past 25 years. If you make a change in the method, I think maybe having a note that this happened, it's kind of like when we had the windstorm. We had a massive amount of tree debris, and we made note because it increased our diversion at that point, and we knew it was going to go back down. I don't know that changing the method of calculation is the best way to go. And, the way that I've done this forever is that we take all the commodities from all of the recycling and disposal facilities, all their data that they give us on an annual report, and I add them up. And I compare that to disposal facilities, and that gives us a diversion rate. It's a pretty straightforward thing. I've always used a Uh, I've always used the EPA measuring recycling, a guide for state and local governments, as kind of like the way that we do it. I think that's the way it was set up back in the 90s by the district at that time, although I wasn't there. But we basically have continued that. And, you know, that is more or less what these numbers are. The landfill, the recycled, this, you know, one of them is the overall rate, which includes C&D material and beneficial use. The other one is more of a recycling rate, which is, you know, residential, commercial type stuff. So when Ralph Avenue closes, it's going to impact this number is what it's going to do. And it'll send it down to 48% or so.
Sure it will.
But I'm not sure that changing the method of calculation is what we would do, because it's really a standard way of calculating diversion.
But Pete, you're not changing how you're doing it. You're readjusting the number to reflect the market. If you've got 125,000 tons that has been put in our recycling goal as beneficial reuse, and as of January 1st, 2023, it's not there, that's not changing. I don't care if you change any number in history, but it should be reflected that you're not getting that anymore. And that's going to reduce the recycling goal as a benchmark substantially.
Well, it'll be reflected. That material's not, we're not just not calculating it anymore. It's going to go to disposal.
Well,
So the disposal number is actually going to go up.
Well, I quite understand that, but that doesn't say that the recycling goal that we have looked at, and we're saying is what, 54%, and we have a goal in 2026, 70%. Actually, diversion at this point has gone down to 48%, and how are we even going to come close to getting a 70% diversion rate in 2026? Because that number was based on the 54% used just this year. So it just, to me, doesn't make sense that you wouldn't adjust the number as far as the benchmark.
Can you explain to me how we should adjust it?
Yeah. If first you tell me how many tons are we losing on a yearly basis because of the beneficial reuse that we're not going to get from Ralph Avenue.
Pretty close to 100,000.
So 100,000 tons are part of the recycling goal as beneficial reuse, even though I don't see a category called beneficial reuse.
Bob, it's there, but I don't want to scroll down very far because there may be company information there.
Okay. Well, you said 100,000. So our recycling goal is the diversion rate is going to be reduced by 100,000 as of, say, January of 2023. And I don't care if you don't change anything in the past, but beginning whenever we are losing that particular diversion opportunity, it should be reflected in our diversion goal going forward. Or else, Pete, how are we going to get to 70% when you've basically reduced the diversion by 8 points?
So you're not suggesting that we modify the existing calculation method. You're saying that we need to change the citywide goal.
That's exactly all I'm saying, because you might, well, there's other diversion, right? That isn't the only place where we have beneficial reuse. So no, I don't think we want to reduce or strike that out completely. But I do think we need an adjustment showing that we're going to be 100,000 tons per year less when in fact whenever that date is going forward, because that's going to change our baseline.
I guess I'm still not understanding. The baseline is, to me, these numbers that we've had for years and years and years. Last year, from 2017 to 2021, we were diverting 50% of everything that, including construction and demolition debris that's beneficially reused.
How much of that 50% was beneficial reuse?
So if you see this number here, that's that 100,000. When I remove it, it changes this annual diversion rate right there. Can you see it?
Yes.
So if I put it back,
So let's do an example. So let's say that Ralph Avenue closes January 1st, 2023. Then none of that material is going to be beneficial reuse. Then what we're saying is that the end result of 2023 is going to be 100,000 less, and that's going to reduce our current goal, or diversion goal. And my point is that if you're 6 or 8 points less at that point, and we're looking for a short-term plan of 70% in 2026, it's going to be impossible to reach that.
I don't disagree that it keeps us from reaching our goal, but it's a fact that we don't have that diversion anymore. The numbers turn into what the numbers turn into.
That's definitely true. But let's have a note in regards to what our current diversion rate would be at that time. It's not going to be 54%. It's going to be, as you said, 48%. That's going to be our current diversion rate.
Yeah, I think this note here include current diversion rates and potential after closure. Does that it's going to impact us by about 2% of our overall rate.
And I do want to add too that, like, even though this waste is not going to Ralph Avenue, that doesn't automatically preclude that it's going to go to the landfill instead of Ralph Avenue. And I do think that, some amount of this will still get recycled, will show up into, other waste streams we are capturing, and not all of it will go to the landfill. So even though, that represents 2% or 2.5% of our diversion, we're going to lose all of that between, now and next year.
I agree, Kid. And I was just using 100,000 as an example. Yeah, it might be.
I didn't hear what Bob said at the last part, kind of faded out.
I said I agree with Kid in regards to that we're going to see some additional recycling out of that material, but I was simply using 100,000 as an example.
Right, and that's the whole idea I think that he has, as far as opening up a transfer station to try to capture some of that material to recycle it, which is great. I think that's what we want. And we want to support those end use markets, so it's more of it can be recovered.
Well, then let me ask you the simple question: Are we going to change our diversion goal for 2028 to something less than 70%, as it is in this 10-year plan?
I don't know that we, I mean, we, obviously that can be considered. I don't know that it has to be considered for this plan, but, you know, if we want to reset our goals, I think that that's smart because number one, that study, which made recommendations, didn't, you know, doesn't have the force of law anyway. The study made recommendations beginning in 2016. Well, we didn't even get started due to the pandemic till really 2021 or 2022. So yeah, I think obviously we need to maybe look at adjusting our goals a bit, but I don't think that we need to reduce our goal. I think maybe we extend it, the time frame to reach that goal.
I think that will require some additional discussion because if you've reduced the goal by eight percentage points and you still retain a goal of 70% in 2026, that puts a lot of pressure on you, and it puts a lot of pressure on all of us that collects recyclables in order to obtain that number. It's unrealistic. Just like the waste generation number was unrealistic.
Well, I'm not necessarily, I mean, it's not up to me, it's up to the board, but I'm not in favor of reducing a goal. I'm for evaluating the goals, timeframes to reach it. And then, you know, hopefully some of the initiatives that we have in this plan can recover that material that we might be losing. And we can still meet our goal. You know, we might have a little setback, but you know, I don't want to say, well, you know, we can't do it. You know, let's put the effort in. I'm not afraid of putting the effort in towards reaching it.
Can I make a comment? I think I understand what Mr. Lee's saying, and that is a whole lot of 100,000 tons of material that is more than likely not going to be diverted. It's a lot of it's going to end up in the landfill stream, but the numbers are the numbers. That 100,000 tons going to go somewhere. Like I'm in the shingle recycling business. There were a time when we were recycling 15,000 ton, 20,000 ton of shingles. If that time comes again, well, then there you make up for a lot of that number. Or let's say that there's a massive amount of concrete that is also diverted. Well, that would make up for that number a little bit more. But I don't see how you can just not include that 100,000 ton potentially that Ralph was diverting as just that it's not going to go anywhere else, or you don't want to report that anymore because you don't have that. And who's to say that a year or two from now there won't be another place similar to the Ralph Avenue transfer station that convert that tonnage also. So it's just a little bit unforeseen. So I don't know that you would want to jump the numbers around or create a different baseline.
I don't want to change the numbers are the numbers, and it'll reflect into the material that goes to it. I'm just addressing the whole issue in regards to what our goals are. 70% that is in 2026 is not going to be obtainable if your reduction from your base goal is down by 6 or 8 points. That's what I'm addressing. As far as where the material goes, it's going to go somewhere, and we have to. I'm not saying we should.
So where do we go from here?
I'm sure it'll be coming up at the 109 board meeting.
So as far as the committee goes and the recommendations tonight for this plan, are the things that I have marked in red here sufficient for now until that further discussion takes place? Well,
I mean, that's not my preview, so I
I
can't
think
answer.
the only thing that would be necessary would be if you would want to include in this plan a need to make up the offset from the loss of the Vote Avenue beneficial reuse, that's going to be a primary focus or something in that degree. See, my concern was that we are not reporting numbers that we know won't be there next year. And if that's not the case, then the numbers that we've had in the past, you know, they are what they are. And I just don't want to forecast numbers that we know are artificially high.
Would this be kind of what you was looking for, Bruce?
Yes. The only other thing would be if you want to quantify it, because it is a significant percentage, or you could probably quantify it as a percentage safer than you can quantify it as a hard tonnage number.
Can you say that again? I didn't catch that.
I was thinking that it's probably safer to list it as a percentage impact rather than a tonnage number impact, because we've spoken in somewhat vague or estimates with regard to tonnage. The percentage may be more applicable.
I think that's a good idea, and there's nothing wrong with putting the word approximately in front of it.
Thank you, Sandra.
How's that?
That helps. That's good. Any other comments from committee members? Any other comments from non-committee members?
Okay.
None? I guess we can move on.
Okay, so I am going to go ahead and make this discussed. I need to change that. I'm going to make this and I'm going to have to go back and look at and put that in. So I'm going to leave that red, knowing that if we make a vote to move this forward, that's going to be edits going to be made. Let's see. I didn't have a problem with this, so I'm going to go ahead and make that. I think that this is where we left off. Well, maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but I don't think anybody had an issue with that. Just to be sure, is anybody, this was for the illegal open dumps? In the litter section?
Are we gonna put any listing in there with regard to the Robinson wrecking cleanup project potential?
It's not for sure that cleanup's going to take place. We want it to take place. We're in the preliminary stages of seeing if it can. I hadn't considered putting that in here. And I do know that it's probably going to be a 3 to 4 year project.
That would definitely impact our solid waste plan.
It would. Well, let me think about how we can put that in there, and I'll make those edits, and maybe we can move forward with sending it to the board, realizing that we're still going to have to come back and make a few edits there. Does that sound okay?
It does. I have some reservations on sending it to the board until we see the completed edited version. And just to be upfront with you, I'm not going to be available for the board meeting next week as well. I'm going to be out of town. On a personal note. So we're getting close. Let's just leave it at that for now.
We are. And I would really love to be able to get this to the board next week, because I feel like that, our time is getting close.
Why don't you just create the paragraph that Bruce is talking about and send it to everybody? And that way, if there are no complaints about what you've done, it can go to the board next week.
I'm okay with that. It's not though we're taking a vote. We're not, but.
Exactly.
Is that satisfactory to everyone else?
Yes.
Okay. In the litter specific actions, we're talking about creating a litter education and outreach messaging campaign as part of that, putting waste in its place, focusing on behavior change. Hopefully it doesn't only reduce litter, but also improves the public perception about cleanliness in the community. That would be a one thing. If we could improve, that would be a major milestone for us. Conduct a countywide litter basket inventory, GPS things with the types, conditions of the existing containers, analyze where they can be put better or moved to. Deploy and reposition, and then with a partnership between the Department of Public Works, TARC, and the Waste Management District, create a collection system using Metro Cruise. So this is something that we're looking at extending litter basket usage through all of Jefferson County, not just the Urban Services District, which I think is a really good thing. And still explore a subscription with Literati as part of an education and outreach plan. I don't know if you guys want to Google that if you want and take a look at it. I think that it has the potential to be something that we can definitely use in our education and outreach. Replace the announcement-based collection system, which we already talked about. Any questions on the litter implementation part? Awesome. We didn't have any real specific action items for the siting of solid waste management facilities because it is mostly governed by planning and design and the land development code already. So there wasn't much that we can do there anyway. But one of the things that I think would be good is to create a step-by-step guide to siting solid waste management facilities in the solid waste management area because it can get a little confusing, particularly when you have to go through the waste district, you have to go through the state, you have to go through planning and design. That permitting step it can be daunting, and I think it would be good just to create that for businesses. Still working on this one. I still haven't gotten an answer. Enforcement, we really wasn't going to do much. We got a pretty good program, continuing existing enforcement procedures with annual assessments to identify potential improvement. I'm not sure that the state will accept that one because it's a little vague, but we're doing pretty good. If anything, what we would add is additional staff, additional surveillance cameras, additional equipment. That's pretty much all that I can say there. Financial mechanisms, I still haven't put that in. And again, the state probably doesn't even look at these. But you know, we'll have to get with our new finance person and start to pull some of these down. We did get a new finance person, and we have not been able to sit down with him. He's just trying to get up to speed on everything. And after that, that is it for the plan. A lot of appendices will go into this. Getting ordinance together, all that kind of stuff has to be done. But this is pretty close to the plan. And I would ask that the committee consider moving this forward, knowing that there may be some slight changes and that we have that one section about Robinson wrecking to add.
Mr. Chairman, this is Bob Lee. Can I make a comment?
Certainly.
One of the emergency issues that we haven't talked about, and it's almost that we would be remiss after what we went through for the last 2.5 years, and that's in regards to what kind of emergency programs or whatever that we need if a new pandemic comes around. I mean, that really made a tremendous amount of changes in our industry, in the solid waste industry. And I don't even know how we should address it, but it seems like it should be in the plan.
Good point, Bob. Pete, what are your thoughts in regard to that?
I agree. And I'm looking through here to see if we have put that in here.
I don't recall it.
I don't see it, but I can tell you that is being worked on, which is to change Metro ordinance that allows some flexibility in that regard. We can add anybody want to give some suggested language?
So maybe I can put page 10. Is it something on page 10?
Where did you see that, Samantha?
I was looking at page 10 of, I think it's under the section of the disposal system section.
Mhm.
And there's a question that asks if the county's emergency disaster plan addresses solid waste concerns. And you had put in some text in there. I'm looking at the version of the document that you sent by email. Yeah, that's the one. I don't know if that addresses all of the concerns, but.
I think that addresses more, tornado or flood, um, or a natural disaster as opposed to, I know one of the things that Pete's referring to is we had a period where we had such short staffing because of COVID outbreaks that we weren't able to collect everything in a given week and asked for some relief to be able to commingle yard waste for a short period of time just to make sure that we could collect everything. But we weren't able to because of the metro ordinance. I'm not sure if that language would cover that.
Mr. Chairman, may I make a suggestion?
Absolutely.
What if we put something in, I'm not sure exactly where it will fit, but if we put something in saying that this issue needs to be looked into or addressed or something, rather than trying to solve it between now and December, put some language letting people know that we know this is an issue and that it needs to be addressed, and not put a solution in this particular document.
Being that this document's going to be our guiding text for the next 5 years, I would like to take a run at it if we could, in all honesty.
Okay.
I appreciate what you're saying, Mary Rose, but it shouldn't be that.
Actually, I like what he's starting to write. I think that works very well. You need an S on situations.
Is that all I really need? Need to go further.
I like it broad like that because the issue may not just be staffing in the future.
Absolutely.
And we have started to work on that ordinance. We got a new county attorney, so that's one of the things that they've been drafting some language. The question is, how do you declare it? It has to be a declared emergency. Who has the flexibility and how we can work it? Who's going to make that call to give that flexibility, whether it's the board, and does the board have to get approval from anybody once they do it? So that's what we're trying to work out. And I agree, that's a really good point. I think it needs to be there. So if this is good enough, knowing that we are working towards that, then I think we do have it covered for tonight. Well, why it's not. That's the way this document works. Is everybody okay with that language?
I personally am.
Okay. So we're back to where we was. That's a good catch. Needed to get that in there.
Now, Pete, may I ask, when will the finance people have their numbers and put into the plan?
Yeah, I don't think it'll be that long. We can probably have it in the next week or so. Do you want that to be in there before we get to the board next week?
I would like to have a completed document before we vote to send it to the board. Now that is totally up to the committee as a whole. But my preference would be to have it in there prior to a vote.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
so you just said prior to a vote, I thought the idea was to send it to the 109 board as a review document. Which one is it? What, Pete?
Sorry, Bob, I could not hear the last portion of what you said.
I said, you said to send it to the 109 board for a vote. I thought that we were looking at this current document to send to the board as a review document, not in order to be voted on. If it was to be voted on, I'd take objection to that.
Well, I apologize. I get,
What was,
I'm on too many boards, Bob.
excuse me, yeah,
You are correct. We are talking about sending it to the board as a review document.
is that correct, Pete?
Yes, I think that we're fulfilling the task that the board has giving this committee by giving them back a document that this committee could recommend. From there, to take it a little bit further, the board considers this, gives their input into it. If they want to send it back to the committee, they can do so. If they want to make an edit and not send it back, they can do so. If they're okay with it, I would hope that the next thing that the board does is send it out to public comment. In which case, we at that point, it's out for the entire public to have their look at it and approval. And after 30 days, we have a public hearing for people to come in and verbally give their comment to it. At that point, the board has a decision to adopt this as Global Metro's plan, and they do so through a resolution. If they pass it, then it goes to the state for their final approval. If the board, after hearing all the comments, decides that they want to make edits to it, we send those edits to the state and ask them if we need to go back out to public comment again, if they deemed it significant enough. If they decide no, then, we're good to go. If they say, no, you got to go back out to public comment, we have to make those edits, 30-day public comment period again, and then we submit.
And you said last time we met that you got an extension to when? Was it December the 15th?
It is to December the 15th. It's December the 15th, but in hopes that we can get it done sooner. If we are still running into problems where we have to continue to go back, we can ask for an additional extension. I'm not sure how far that goes, but it doesn't hurt to ask. If we're having trouble, the most important thing is that we get it right.
Any comments from any other committee members? Hearing none. We do have some edits to make. You're going to send out a revised document, Pete, or just revised sections? Which is it?
I would send out the full document because I think it's important to keep everything in context to where it's at in the plan. And again, just to cover what I'm going to do is it was to add language regarding Robinson Wrecking and then to complete the financial section. And if I send that out to everyone and everyone and nobody has any issues with it or complaints, then we would be able to present this to the board as a reviewed document.
One other question I have, and you're going to probably be discouraged that I ask this. With the transfer station / recycling permit at Robinson Wrecking, do we have any estimates on how much material they're going to be able to recover?
From Robinson Wrecking?
Or not Robinson Wrecking, from Vote Avenue?
I don't know. I don't know the equipment. You know, if you can set up a massive operation to do a lot of sorting and recover a lot of material, and you can also start very basic. I'm not exactly sure how they're going to go about that. So it could be a wide range, but I don't think that it would be beneficial for them to do any operation like that if they wasn't going to recover at least 20 to 25%. And I think that on the low side, I think that that would be pretty accurate. Now, please don't hold me to that number.
Would it be appropriate to reach out to Mr. Wicking and see what his intentions are or his goals are for the period of this 5-year plan?
I could.
Do you think that's a fair, do the other committee members think that that's a fair question?
Mr. Chairman, I have a comment.
Yes, sir, go ahead.
It wouldn't make it wouldn't be worth the effort of determining if it's 20 or 25%, because you know what volume is going to come through that transfer station. So it would be volume plus what effort would be made on that volume that's coming in.
Well, if I could, we're talking about something that hasn't necessarily totally started, and we're asking some fairly significant questions of a business to provide stuff about starting up their business that they might not want to share a whole lot of information. And I think that many of the business people here would agree that, you know, they don't necessarily want everybody to know their business. So I would just put that out there that, you know, consider if you would answer the same questions before we go.
I agree with that, Pete. I can't argue that point. It's just, I guess, a variable and an unknown that we'll have to deal with. Anything else from any other committee member?
I'm not sure if you all were planning to vote on something, but I did want to let you all know that with Sarah Lynn leaving and I noticed Brian Slade left, we now have 7 members on the call.
So we do not have a quorum.
No.
Well, with that, we at least can review the updated draft. And we can do that at our leisure over the next week and submit any questions. We will not be able to take a vote on sending it to the board at this meeting without a quorum. but we will have a draft that we can present to the board for their review and comment. And we can address it at the next advisory committee meeting and ask for any input and take a vote on it at that time. Would be the next opportunity.
Would the advisory committee consider a special meeting to get this done?
Actually, if you listen, if you take and extrapolate what Bruce said, we wouldn't need one because we could have the board review it without taking a vote. I think one of the things that we need to tell the board is all the steps we've taken to get to this point and how many, not with numbers, but how many revisions we've gone through to get here, because this really isn't a final document yet for a long time.
And I agree. I would be hesitant to take a vote on it until I see a completed document. And that's with the financial information included. But, you know, we were challenged to fully vet the process, and we know we're going to have shareholder input, whether it be a public meeting or during these meetings. So I think we can share with the board where we're at today. Let them know that we will be open to any input that they have, possibly modify it based on that input, and then take a vote to send it to the board as reviewed and approved by the advisory committee at the next meeting. Any comments on that sequence of events?
So help me clear it up a little bit in my head. So we would only share this with the board as an incomplete document for their review and not a full recommendation yet.
Well, I don't think it has to be couched in negative terms. It is a document that's taken a very long time to get this level of fruition, and it still it's open to change. It's open to change by the board. It's open to change by public meetings. And so I think that Bruce is offering the option of having the board take a serious look at it next week. And if there are any other major changes, they can go to the advisory committee for a vote in October.
Understood.
Thank you, Sandra. Any other comments?
I think that seems like a great plan.
Very good. Hearing that, is there any other discussion on this issue? Hearing none, we can move on to public input. Any public members that want to offer input at this point?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask a question.
Certainly, Mary Rose.
I would just like to know, probably from Pete, how this will affect our public comment period, when that can start in this process, if the board will not actually be voting on it at our next meeting. Will we still be able to go out to public comment without a vote from the board? Or I just wonder how the timeline will work.
I don't think it puts us in danger. It just puts us up against the wall a little bit more. You know, I don't think that we go out to public comment without the board's vote to do so. So if it comes down to it, if we don't get it, if we can't do it at this next board meeting, then I would recommend a special meeting of the board to get that done.
Thank you.
We would need to have a special meeting. Well, I guess, when would our next advisory committee meeting be?
Let's see.
We have October 19th.
And the board would be the 26th.
Bruce, can I make a comment on the scheduling piece?
Yes.
I think what's important in regards to, I'll say for lack of a better term, rushing to the finalization of the plan, is that we have to remember that a lot of groups that are looking at this, we are talking about the Apartment Association, the Home Builders, National Waste Recycling Association. It's difficult for them to sequester all of their members in order to get some comments and suggestions to the 109 board. And, you know, even though we can sequester the committee, the advisory committee, it just takes more time in order to get that done with your membership of your certain organizations. And I'm sure there's going to be additional comments and suggestions to the plan before we go to I hope, before we go to a vote at the 109 board.
I'm just, Bob, and I appreciate your comment. I am just very hesitant to vote to send a document to the board. Well, we don't have the votes tonight. But until I can see a complete document, I'm hesitant to vote upon it, as I'm sure everyone would be. And I've got multiple drafts of very good work that everyone's put into this, and I appreciate everyone's input. But personally, I would like to see a completed document to vote on as a committee prior to sending it to the board as our final piece of work.
Yeah, Bruce, I was actually agreeing with you. I don't think there should be a rush in order to get this to the board for their vote without additional shareholder recommendations going to either the committee or to the board itself.
Okay, thank you. Well, with that said, Pete, I guess the next order of business would be to make the changes, put those into the draft, send those out at the earliest convenience to all the committee members. And we can be prepared if we need to call a special advisory committee meeting. Well, we have one prior to the next board meeting. We should be prepared at that time to consider it and have the required quorum required to make a vote, and hopefully move forward from there.
Would it make sense that I can send out this as a incomplete, not fully reviewed document to the board members? I personally, if it goes to the 109 board, if it doesn't go to the 109 board next week, there really isn't much business for the 109 board, especially if we're going to call a special meeting at another time. I would hate to waste their time to have a meeting where really not much business is going to get conducted. Although I do have other business, so let me take that back.
Actually, I appreciate what all of you are saying. One of my concerns is if we wait for a completed document, Mary Rose and Bob Lee have been coming to these meetings, but the rest of the board hasn't. We've looked at this now for months, and I don't think it would hurt at all to open that dialogue with the board at the meeting next week. I think they should have more than one quick opportunity to look at what we're presenting.
I don't disagree with that. I think that there was some concern about doing that before we had a completed document from some of the members, but I totally agree with that, Sandra.
Pete, I don't know if this is allowed with this group, but I've seen some other boards do it, but is there an option to potentially do an email vote once people have reviewed it?
No, not with this board, because the way that this board is constituted under KRS, we cannot do that.
And Sandra, I appreciate your comment. I do not have a problem with it going out as a draft document to the 109 board for initial review. But as a final document coming from the advisory committee, you know, I would like to obviously have a vote on sending it to the board as a final document.
I totally agree with you.
Yeah, I agree as well.
Okay, so I can share it next week along with other business under the understanding that it's not a complete document, but to give them a taste of what we're doing so that they're not surprised later on.
That would be
A lot
great.
of pages. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is. It's a big plan.
Kedrick, will you be available for the meeting next week?
At the 109 board
Yes, sir.
meeting, I should be able to.
Because I will not be available to give an advisory committee report. And if it's not you, I was going to call upon Sandra to see if she's going to be in town and available.
Okay.
I'm going to be in Gulf Shores. Sorry, folks, but won't be tuning in.
Jealous.
Pete, can you make sure, or Karen to send me the invitation to that
Sure will.
for the 109 board? Okay.
We'll take care of that, kid.
Appreciate it.
All right, well, now we're at the point of the announcements. Obviously, the next 109 board meeting is September 28th, 5:30 to 7 p.m. Is there any other issues or actions any committee member wishes to bring up at this point? Or any other actions or issues any of the public wishes to bring up at this point? Hearing none, I would ask for a motion to adjourn.
We don't have a quorum to vote. We have to stay.
Oh, that's true, Pete. We're
Yep.
we're here for the duration.
Yeah.
Well, those of you committee members who are on here that are willing to raise their hand, I'm going to go home and eat supper. And
Here, here.
I wish each and every one of you on this call a very safe and enjoyable evening. And thank you so very much for everyone's input. It's greatly appreciated. Pete, thank you for your work on the plan. I think we've put a lot of effort into it, and we are very, very close.
Thanks, Bruce. Thanks, everybody. Y'all have a good week. Good rest of your week.
Us too.
Thank you all.
Thank you.